Planning and building a wine cellar is a fun and exciting experience. The process gets the creative juices flowing as an endless array of design possibilities exist to capture your style and taste. A great place to start is to ask the question, what is the purpose of my wine cellar beyond the obvious? To store and preserve my wines. How do I want to utilize my space? The basic cellar is a simple yet functional approach, which is designed to maximize the number of bottles in the smallest space possible. Or the moderate cellar, where collectors can see and appreciate their wines, while having some wines and wine-related objects on display. And finally, the showcase cellar, where there is room to invite guests to share the passion for wines with space for tasting and elaborate design options. So, what kind of cellar will you build? The video you are about to see takes a strategic approach to designing a wine cellar by addressing the important construction considerations that need to be made in order to build an efficient and practical cellar for storing your fine wines.
Welcome to the How to Build a Wine Cellar tutorial by WhisperKOOL. When watching this video, keep in mind, you should never build a cellar where power or mechanical failures may ruin your wine. Avoid building a cellar in garages and other uninsulated rooms. Cooling systems need to be maintained regularly, about every 2 to 3 months. Please consult a wine cellar professional before you begin construction on your cellar. Alright, let's get started. As you may know, the proper environment for the preservation and maturing of fine wines requires controlling both the temperature and the humidity. Ideal wine conditions maintain a temperature of 55 degrees Fahrenheit and a relative humidity of 50 to 70%. A temperature higher than 55 will cause your wine to age too fast, and lower than 55 will cause your wine to age too slow. Likewise, a humidity higher than the proper amount may cause mold to grow, and lower than the proper amount may cause corks to crack. Your WhisperKOOL cooling system is designed specifically to maintain this delicate balance and optimize your cellar to the ideal conditions needed to store wine. When choosing a space for your wine cellar, you want to keep a few things in mind. If you have a choice, it's a good idea to choose a room with as little exposure to direct sunlight as possible. You're also going to want to note which walls are interior walls and which ones are exterior, because this will determine how much insulation is required and where to install a vapor barrier. There are 3 types of systems you can use to cool a cellar, and each has its own variables to take into consideration. Self-contained systems such as our Extreme Series and SC Series are the most economical and easiest to install. They are designed to mount between the studs of an existing wall, and they do not require a licensed HVAC installation technician. One end of the system blows cool air into the cellar, and the other end absorbs heat from the cellar and exhausts the heat into an area adjacent to the cellar. Self-contained units will make more noise than a split or ducted system. Split systems are often the most efficient way to cool a cellar. Cooling unit condensers are typically noisy and require significant space for ventilation. In most cases, the cellar location does not include an area for these functions. By splitting the cooling system, the condenser can be placed in a space better suited for heat and noise dissipation, while the quiet evaporator is inside the cellar. A licensed HVAC technician is required for this installation. Ducted systems can be self-contained or split systems, and typically have more installation options and flexibility. The unit may be installed up to 25 ducted feet from the cellar, with the cool air flowing from the cellar and the heat exhaust ducted to the outside of the home. Ducting is also a more artistic choice for wine collectors who do not want to see a cooling unit in the cellar. Noise from the unit will be reduced or eliminated depending on the installation. Standalone units, evaporators, and supply ducts should all be installed within 18 inches from the ceiling. All units require a dedicated 110 volt, 20 amp circuit to ensure the unit has the proper amount of amps to run at all times. No matter what type of system you choose, you're going to have to vent your heat somewhere. Here are a few things to take into consideration. Our cooling systems are able to cool up to 55 degrees cooler than the temperature on the exhaust side of the cooling system, with the exception of our lower end models which have a 30-degree differential. So for example, in order to maintain 55 degrees in the cellar, the exhaust room cannot exceed 110 degrees. If the exhaust room does exceed 110 degrees and go up to, say, 115 degrees, then the cooling system will only be able to cool the cellar up to 60 degrees. That's why choosing a room with adequate ventilation on the exhaust side of the cooling system is one of the most important considerations in building your cellar and installing the cooling system. Also keep in mind that the WhisperKOOL cooling system is designed to maintain relative humidity between 50 and 70%. In high humidity environments, the unit will remove excess humidity out of the air and dissipate this moisture through the condensate evaporate system or optional drain line. However, WhisperKOOL cooling system does not create humidity. If you live in a dry environment, you may need to create humidity within the cellar. This can be done by the periodic use of a non-heat humidifier or by installing a small decorative fountain within the cellar. Standard air conditioners rapidly cool a room, but in doing so they may shock your wine and strip the humidity from the air. That's why WhisperKOOL systems are designed to slowly bring your cellar to the proper temperature while maintaining a relative humidity through a process of heat absorption and disbursement. To frame the room, use standard 2x4 or 2x6 construction methods and ceiling joists, following guidelines of local and state codes. In cellars, the thicker the walls, the better the insulation value. Also keep in mind that all glass must be insulated, and that if you do choose to have glass in your cellar, it may require you to use a larger cooling unit due to the poor insulation value. Apply 6mm plastic sheeting to the warm side of the cellar walls to create a vapor barrier. Ideally, this should be applied to the outside walls and ceiling. But if this is not possible, wrap the entire interior of the cellar, including the ceiling. The importance of a vapor barrier cannot be overstated. In high humidity areas, it prevents warm, moist air, which can cause mold from entering the cellar. In dry areas, it helps maintain proper humidity in the cellar. You must seal all concrete walls and floors with a sealant such as dry lock. The unit requires that the walls and ceilings be insulated. Fiberglass, grid foam, and blown-in insulation can all be used. A minimum of R13 should be applied to the inside walls of a cellar. Exterior walls may require R19 depending on the wall thickness, and a minimum of R19 is required for the ceiling, but R30 is highly recommended. Keep in mind that concrete is not an insulator and we do not recommend using it if possible. Install an exterior grade door using weather stripping on all four sides of the door jamb. A sweep or threshold is required for a tight seal and to prevent cool air from escaping. Lights can produce a tremendous amount of heat, so we recommend using low voltage lights such as LEDs or fluorescents. When installing lights in the ceiling, be sure not to compromise the vapor barrier. Motion sensors and timers should be used to prevent the lights from being left on when no one is in the cellar. For your walls, standard sheetrock is acceptable. However, many cellar contractors prefer to use green board due to its moisture resistance. A PVA paint formulation will provide a durable finish and help to work as a vapor barrier. Tongue and groove wood paneling is also an attractive option for wall covering. Use rot-resistant woods such as redwoods and cedar, which will breathe in the cool, damp environment of the cellar. This may be left unfinished or unsealed. However, spilled water or wine will discolor the wood. You can choose from many different types of flooring: slate, marble, tile, or vinyl. Carpet, however, cannot be used because it will mold and mildew in the cold, damp environment. Racking may vary significantly depending on your style, taste, budget, and use of the cellar. Racking is usually made from mahogany, redwood, or cedar. Attention should be focused on the bottle sizes, capacity, and display options. Positioning. Remember to choose a room that doesn't receive direct sunlight. Venting. Choosing a room with adequate ventilation is key to proper climate management. Cooling systems. Standard air conditioners are unsuited for cooling a wine cellar. Framing the room. The thicker the walls, the better the insulation value. Vapor barrier. A vapor barrier protects your cellar from mold and keeps your humidity at the proper levels. Insulation. The better the cellar is insulated, the easier it will be to maintain the proper climate for your wine. Lighting. Use low voltage lights on a motion sensor to keep the heat at a minimum. Wall covering. Make sure to use rot-resistant woods such as redwoods and cedar. And lastly, when choosing a cooling system for your cellar, consult a WhisperKOOL professional to better help you with your unique setup.